keep those questions coming, folks. I'm going to go for a pretty broad one here, Neil and Thomas, and I'd be interested to get both your perspectives on this. So Maria Clements has got quite a big question, but I hope you can provide some succinct answers. Did you take the different research paradigms of the disciplines into account? And does this kind of bridging need a research paradigm shift?
Hi, Maria. Yes, this was actually one of the key elements of the workshops. By running the workshops in a very informal and sort of friendly format, we were very aware that there was going to be this paradigm perspective to tackle. So we were very aware of this different approaches or ways of thinking about information. And that's what I was in some ways alluding to in the data-information comment, is that it's used in different ways. It's explored in different ways. And actually quite often the questions we're asking are different. So yes, we're very aware of this paradigm or the different paradigms that maybe exist in the different disciplines, and the need to try and address that in thinking about how we thought about information. And this question of data or information is one of those points, I think, of which we need to be very aware of how different disciplines are operating and thinking. So no, I think that's a really important point, and one that we spent much of the first workshop actually trying to address, and building that confidence between the different participants, that you could share and openly say, well, actually, I don't agree with that, or the reasons why I'm exploring this data are very different from what you're attempting.
Okay. Thank you, Neil. There's a question here from David Nash. He was interested in your observation about the loss of contextual detail when creating indices from narrative sources. So his question is whether you think that is a real problem, given that presumably index series are mainly used by social scientists as a backdrop against which social narratives can be considered.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for that question. I was having to speed up at the end because I was aware that I was starting to overrun my time slot. But on the final workshop communication slide, I tried to sort of address this a bit, in the sense that the indices can be really valuable, but one of the best ways to use them might be actually to go back and actually bring the qualitative in at the end, where you've got indices, and actually present the two together, so that you're actually able to explore some of the most extreme events, or those events that have the highest or most severe implications, and actually sort of explore that in a bit more detail through the use of the stories from the qualitative material. So in a sense, you lose it in the first instance in the production of the indices, but there's the opportunity towards the end to actually go and bring that material, that wealth of value, that context back into the story. And that can really help allow you to sort of expand on some of that. So I actually, my favorite approach would be to use the two together, but actually you might simplify to generate the indices, but then you can bring the qualitative context and the qualitative wealth of information back in at a later stage to really demonstrate the value of these sources. I hope that answers that question, Dave.
Okay. I've got a question for each, actually, that I'd like to pose. So for you, Thomas, I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more about what practically could be done, right? So what can the Environment Agency do now, I guess, when it does its flood risk assessments in a practical way? Is it a matter of actually just expanding the period upon which flood risk assessment is made, so that it goes quite far back into the past, so that it captures these historical events that would cause problems now, as you demonstrated? Or, what should a practitioner do, I guess, is the question in terms of the EA and other practitioners. And for you, Neil, if you go afterwards, is what has the project, I guess, taught more widely, more widely about interdisciplinarity, I guess? How could, what are the lessons learned about doing interdisciplinary research between, geographers, physical geographers, historical geographers, engineers, social scientists? What is it? Are there some wise words you can provide for the wider program? Yeah. So maybe Thomas first.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. I think that is a difficult question. I think the answer very much depends on the importance of what the Environment Agency or whoever is trying to do. I guess if we're talking about protecting communities in cities, then we're talking about considerable economic assets at risk, and not to disregard the human impact of flooding. And so in that case, I guess there should be no effort should be spared in trying to work out what the best estimate is. And I would say in these cases, it will be, I think it's a valuable thing to do. If you're trying to design a culvert under a road somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, then no, I don't think you need to mobilize all of this effort. I would say, so we did quite a lot of public outreach as part of our project, and it has been phenomenal, and the amount of interest we have found in the wider community to talk about this story and to hear about these stories and to come up with opinions on this topic has been quite overwhelming, really. So I think, I'm hoping that, one thing is to calculate probabilities, and so, but this issue of raising awareness, I think, is no better way of doing that than talking about these historical floods and the narratives and the stories that are related to those, and how the city has changed. It's interesting to see that the way the city of Bath and its environments looks today is really, in large part, a result of the community's efforts to mitigate floods. And I think that's been really fascinating and interesting all across.
Thank you, Thomas. Neil?
What would I take away, or what would my key learnings from this? Openness of communication, so allowing an environment where everybody feels they can contribute openly, that no single discipline has a monopoly is really important, or a correct answer or a perceived correct answer, and that everybody has equal weight in that conversation, I think, is probably the key element that I would take forward. We set out at each workshop with a set of questions that we were trying to address, and I think that was important that everyone was aware of those questions throughout, but we allowed and facilitated open discussion around that. And some of the interesting elements actually emerged from tangential avenues that were explored, I think, through the workshops, and I think everybody approached the workshops with openness, and I think that was really appreciated. And yeah, I have to say thank you to all the participants, because it wouldn't have worked without them. And whilst we had a core group of about 10 individuals who attended most, the rest of the group varied, and they sort of came in and out of the workshops, and that was actually really helpful, that we could explore aspects that have maybe arisen in a previous one with a different group, and therefore we were getting a broader range of perspectives. What point would I say that we maybe struggle with most? It would probably be the engagement of maybe non-academic, non-Met Office, non-CEH partners, who found that whilst they hoped to be able to engage with us at certain points, that they weren't able to attend a workshop on a particular day, and because of other commitments. And I think that's probably the area that we struggled with most, or found the most challenging, because yeah, it was just external commitments for non-academic partners. And I think I'd just spotted in the chat somebody had asked something similar. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Neil and Thomas. We've reached 1 o'clock, so we do need to wrap up. There are some more questions there, and if you're able to answer them live, fantastic, or otherwise we'll take them offline and put them in the website. I'd like to just advertise, I guess, the next couple of seminars before we do go. So we have 2 more before the end of the year. And so in a couple of weeks' time, Lisa Collins from the University of Leeds will talk to us about smart system approaches for climate resilient livestock. And then the last seminar in the year, we'll have Claire Scannell and Lizzie Kendall talk to us about their work on urban climate change and climate services. So do come and join us, register. The links are on the website. You can find more information there. We've already put Neil's slides up, so you can click on those links to a lot of the historical databases that have been provided there. So thank you very much for participating, and thanks again, Neil and Kate, for a very interesting webinar on this topic. And I guess be aware that there'll be a paper on the protocol coming up next year at some point. So keep an eye out on the websites to be posted on that. And there'll be a little bit of follow-up in the new project that Neil is leading, funded through AHRC, where there'll be more work which you can hear about, and again is on the website. So thanks all for attending, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. So thanks, and bye-bye.
Thank you.